Not
Number
following the
one.
instructions very well.
What's
it weird on your right
Up
side?
high, it says too. Up high.
Where all the time. It's a free advertisement.
So somebody had a sense of humor that wrote those directions.
Okay. We're live whenever you want to be.
Word correctly. I don't know if people will.
Until you have time to read the instructions completely.
Should be ready to go. I waited for a sec. Just waiting for Lauren to get here. I don't have a camera.
Uh-oh, don't, nobody call Mr. Compton.
Welcome.
Ms. Clark, next, how are you?
Good.
Got you right next to the gentleman in the red shirt.
I gather some stuff from out there, or am I good?
You're good. It should all be at your chair.
Yep. Hi.
Yes, sir.
Call the Thursday, the July 23rd meeting of the Historic Preservation.
It's a very hot July outside.
Yeah.
Historic Preservation Commission.
Number one.
Meeting to order. Welcome, roll call.
Commissioner Stevens?
Present.
Commissioner Scott?
Present?
Commissioner Rivers? Commissioner Hammond?
Present.
Commissioner Broughton?
Present.
Mr. Bucker?
Here.
Chair Wojciechowski?
Here.
Alternate Adams? Alternate Porter?
Here.
Commissioner Liaison Grignani?
Here.
Council Liaison Eden?
Here.
Council Liaison Farmer?
Okay, so we got a new alternate member, right?
New blood.
So why don't you introduce yourself? Unless, I don't see you like yourself.
I'm Debbie Quarternick. I ran for alderman last year. My family's been in the Wildwood area before it was Wildwood. We moved, our family moved here in 1946. So when I heard about this committee, I thought, well, with our history in Wildwood, this sounds like right up my alley to help out.
Fantastic. Good. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to the commission. This is the fun commission.
All right.
We're gonna have a lot of
That's what I
fun.
want to hear.
We make a lot of progress. We have a lot of fun.
Right.
So I'll call for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 5th, 2019.
So moved.
Yes, there's two sets of minutes. So
So
that's
you want-
not reflected on the agenda.
Okay, so do you want to do the meeting minutes or the demolition first? Demolition took place first.
Yeah, let's go ahead and finish the motion where it's already offered, and then we can come back and do the demolition.
Okay. So this is for the meeting minutes from December 5th.
Okay. You seconded?
I will. Second.
Okay.
Motion,
I think we have 2 minutes.
seconded, all approved, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Now the demolition meeting minutes from December 5th, 2019.
I'll second those now.
Are you going to second, or are you going to make a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion. Okay, I'm sorry.
Motion, second,
Yeah, all right.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I've been watching enough TV.
Motion's approved.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, we had a meeting last night of what's called our Watershed Erosion Task Force, and the Thomases were there. They are the owners of the property on Pullman Road that we visited in December, and the meeting minutes that were just approved. And both Mr. and Mrs. Thomas were very complimentary about our visit, and they wanted to extend their thanks to each of you for your participation. They said that the rehab went better than expected. The firm took almost everything. Yeah, they were surprised about just the things that they thought would not go, did go. And if you drive now on Wild Horse Creek Road by Pullman Road, the sheds and the residents are gone on a sound empty field. The interesting thing they told me last night is the folks from the rehab company were just so excited about the tin roofing on the sheds. They couldn't believe they were getting that, so. I thought I'd just give you an update since I talked to
Thank you.
them yesterday.
That tin ripping stuff is being used in a lot of projects now, that DIY projects, so I wouldn't doubt that it will sell fairly rapidly if it has any sort of a decent price on it.
And we have about 40 or 50 sheets of it over at Glen Gailey's yard that we salvaged over the years. So,
And you'll enjoy it.
you betcha, it's great stuff. It's on the new pavilions if you wanted to see it down in the community park.
Well, so it turned out like you were hoping it would turn out.
I'd like to think so. Now, Mr. Scott visited the company that did the rehab, so
Yeah.
I'd be interested, later on in the agenda, he's going to give us an update.
Sounds good. Any public comment from anybody in the public? So we got new business, 4 items ready for action. Should we remove the one so Harl's not here? Would he be doing it?
Well, if I could give an explanation, Mr. Chair. I think the first call we received this morning was from Mr. Harl. His offices are up in Overland, and the first thing he asked was, are you having a meeting? And we sure are, and I think he called there after a couple board.
No, he said, okay, I'll see you there.
Yeah.
He was gonna be a trooper about it,
Yeah,
but
but you could tell he was, worried about the ride both here and back. And so, given it's a training session and we just need to complete it in 2020, Kathy and I thought it best to kind of get him off the hook. And we rescheduled for March.
Okay, sounds good. So the second item was just the discussion of the Essen Log family preliminary reconstruction drawings from Header and Ives.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. As you know, the Historic Preservation Commission made a recommendation in 2019 to engage the architectural firm Pattern and Ives. It's a local firm, but their principal architect for restorations and this particular type log cabins came out of the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. Many of you attended the kind of the semi-reconstruction that occurred in August on the top deck of our parking garage. A nice hot couple of days. And it was so interesting, it brought Tim Kilby out of retirement for a while. So we were pleased to see him up there with his protege helping out. The first step in that process was the development of these preliminary drawings that we provided to you as part of the packet. And I couldn't have been more pleased with the outcome of the work. I think it's a good start and it gives us a really nice understanding of what's available and what's not available on the four sides, or the four facades of the log cabin. There is a next step, and I think Kathy's going to maybe speak to that a little bit for you. This is the first step, there is a second step.
so, the second step is going to come, will be the creation of the actual biddable documents. This is a great start and proves that we can reconstruct the cabin. We have enough of the materials to do that. But we have to make some decisions, and those are not on the agenda this evening, and we've started those. But we still need to make the decisions about the location of the cabin, the finishes within the cabin, utilities or no utilities, and those other kinds of things, so we can have those biddable documents created. So Joe and I intend next month to bring back to you the continued conversation on the location selection. We'll have a little more information on the Village Green area next door, and some other things with that, so we can kind of keep that conversation moving along. And then once we make those decisions, we'll have to recontract with Pattern Ives for phase 2, which will include the biddable documents.
Any discussion on this?
I guess, my question, I guess, would be, is you've got to put something in it, you've got to do something with it. And I don't know, I would say, should there be a market study, or, I don't know what you would call it, what is the demand? I mean, what do we need to do with it? Is there a way to find out what would be the most popular or most useful thing to do? I mean, obviously, I think we'd like to see it used for demonstrations and reenactment and things like that, but, will that work? And how can we make sure that that would work? And then we got to find somebody has to furnish the house, and how are we going to do that? You don't want to just leave it as an empty shell. I would like to see some furniture in there, and is there some source? Can we do something with the Historical Society, maybe to get some, if they have furnishings or something like that, to be able to? I mean, it wouldn't be fine furnishings, it'd be rough furnishings, but it would be, we need to put something in there. But I just want to make sure that we decide what we want to do with it, and it works, that people will use it. That's beyond the kind of stuff I do. I don't know how we make sure that there's a market for it.
Well, to a certain degree, when the city agreed to accept the donation of the log cabin from the Karst family, and Mrs. Karst is a relative of the Essen family, we kind of assumed there'd be a market. So if there isn't a market, well, the acceptance kind of makes that point a little mute, so to speak. At our last meeting, and now it's almost 2 months ago, there was a consensus reached regarding the cabin, for the most part of that. Consensus was reached regarding the following: the cabin would not be used for meeting or event space. The cabin should only be used for a museum-type use, and utility installation should be limited, if any. No plumbing should be installed. Limited electricity for minimal lighting and security could be considered. We removed the Glencoe and Community Park locations from the list of potential sites, and the direction of the commission was to look more toward the Village Green, or a shared opportunity between the Village Green and the City Hall site. So those are kind of the consensus we reached, at least in terms of it's not going to be an active use area, so to speak.
But if you talk about furnishing it, could you get people to, because I know I have a few really old pieces, if you could get people to donate,
That's right, I think what
you know,
we need.
items
yeah.
that would be timely for when that was built, and maybe use it for, school-age children, for education, history, field trip or
No,
whatnot.
that's what I'd like to see somebody,
Right.
we're making apple butter today, or
Sure.
soap, or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, because people like
We
to
did that.
dress in period clothing and
Yeah.
do different things like that, so.
Right there.
As far as getting, the next step in this, we gotta pick the location, and then we have to develop the bid package, right? With the minimal utility, electric.
So we'll provide, once the commission formally reaches the final consensus, we'll provide that to Pattern and I, and we'll let them use their creativity and their experience to tell us what works best for a museum-type facility with minimal utility installations, and at least give them some ideas of potential locations on collective. Roughly now, we have about 10 acres between City Hall site and the 2 3-acre parcels of ground. Kathy mentioned that we'll have a little bit better idea of what our other consultants thinking about the Village Green. That firm out of Cincinnati, Ohio will be in town next week. We plan to spend most of Monday over on the 6-acre site, getting to know it a little bit better. And then we're going to meet with the Planning and Parks Committee, the City Council, on Tuesday evening. They've been advised that the cabin may be an option, or an asset that'll be added to the property, and we'll reinforce that next week as well.
Okay, so by next meeting, we should have some information to
I hope so.
make a, possibly have another discussion on
Right.
erosion.
Hopefully so. And I concur with Mr. Corbin that, and Mr. Scott, if we could reach out to the community, just do some outreach and say, you know, we've got this cabin, we'd like some period furniture, if you have some available.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've also talked as a commission about doing some type of identification on these donations, some type
Oh,
of
yeah.
plaque, so that people, if they would give furniture, we can put something in the cabin acknowledging that gift.
We have brass plaques all over them.
Yeah. You find them, they,
Yeah.
By a plaque and-
so, you know, the other thing that came out of the reconstruction in August, and I hope this will hold true, Kathy quizzed Tim Kilby, I think that day, what are you doing here? And, because, you know, we've been chasing him for months to try to help us. And he's like, well, I got, they contacted me, it seemed interesting, and he kind of alluded to that he might stay involved through the process.
Yeah, I think once we have a biddable document and people can get their heads and hands wrapped around it a little bit better, I think we might see something.
It's a positive outcome, because he is the premier log cabin person in this region, if not in the Midwest.
Are these drawings, can an architect work from these drawings?
Not to the degree we want, and there is a second phase, and we're going to be bringing you more information on that second phase to let you provide a recommendation to us.
What was the price that we paid to get us to this point?
I think it was about $12,000 in that
So
ballpark.
the next phase is going to be an additional charge to get us engineered drawings.
Yes.
The lion's share of that amount, as I've come to realize, was the 2 days they spent out on the upper deck of the parking garage, getting the pieces all laid out so we could know what we are missing and what we had available. And there was more there than I had expected, so that was, I thought, good news.
I think we got a good deal
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to
for what they did. And their documentation of that showing how few logs have to be replaced, the new logs, but their attempt to salvage the old ones, consolidate the old ones, put Dutchmen in them. I mean, they really documented that well, and I think that building's gonna go back together pretty much the way it came apart, which is, I think, quite a feat, considering how it came apart.
Yeah. Do we know if we have, because my understanding, the city has some spare logs from somewhere. Do we know if we have enough to replace these, or the ones that are missing are deteriorated to the point where they can't be used?
I don't have an exact count of the number of logs that we've salvaged over the years, but one off of Ossett Fork Road, it was almost the entire cabin structure. It was inside a home that was
Right.
built around it. And then we also got probably a half of a cabin structure off the property that is on the northeast corner of Pond Road and Route 100. That was also inside another house.
Okay,
And so,
so there's a good chance we do.
I think we do. We certainly can, when we get to that next stage, if the commission supports that with Pattern and Eyes, we can certainly get them out to Gailey's Yard to see what we have available.
Well, some of the extras actually wound up on top of the garage, which I thought was interesting because they knew that they weren't part of the Essen log cabin, but they had been stacked in the yard in the
Oh,
same
okay.
spot. And they could pick them out, it was pretty interesting. But they said that some of those could be used too. So I think that what we have would probably be sufficient.
Joe,
Kind of like
from
a
a
budget.
budget perspective, if we decide to make a standalone project out of this and go put it in a park somewhere, to me, that money would be a lot more difficult to attain than theoretically maybe Marion and the Village Green, and maybe use some of those funds to incorporate us to help build. Is that a fair statement?
I believe so. The city council, which Ms. Edens is part of, has set aside $800,000 for the Village Green initial construction of improvements. The log cabin has zero.
Yeah, so that's my point. If we can kind of marry this project into another project, we may be a lot more successful in getting it done in a
It has more
timely
than
manner.
zero. They shook people
What?
down for like $1,000, remember? We're plugging away at it.
What do you foresee for the Village Green? What type of activity are you now looking at there? How would this fit in with that?
I don't know. You know, there was a group of volunteers that were appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council that updated our Parks Action Plan. And they spoke of it as a village green with limited improvements, but potentially a spray ground and maybe a shelter, something like that. Then there's others that I've heard say, well, would a rec center fit there? And so the consultant has 3 tasks. The first one is the environmental assessment and understanding what we can and can't do with the land because of grand trees, topography, soils. And the last part is actually a concept plan. But the majority of their work is going out to the public and doing public input sessions, surveys, getting residents of Wildwood, all of you, to tell us what you think it should be.
Okay. Would it be anything to do with, I mean, what about like the garden, the garden that's down that way?
And the garden's
It's
back
back
out.
there,
Yeah.
yeah.
There, but I mean, I would see, if you're gonna have a log cabin, it'd be nice to have a garden next to it, or, vegetable garden next to it. I don't know.
We can do that.
So,
You know, that boundary line between City Hall site and the 2 3-acre lots is, well, for all intents and purposes, imaginary. We can do a boundary adjustment plan, do away with it. And we were careful when we did the garden to leave enough space on the south side so that if we wanted to access the remaining 1 acre to the east, we could do a little trail system or pedestrian facility around it. So we've got 6 acres, the garden, and still some available land.
My concept of the village green always has been a village green. Basically, bare space with maybe some small shelter where people could go and have lunch or whatever. But where this would fit in, and I personally feel that it should not turn into a Ward 8 park or a Ward 7 park, either one. Should be an open space for concerts, whatever, community activities. And I think that putting this there or next to the garden, either one works. And it should be something, and I think my opinion is that it would go through council better if it were something that were going to be used for something, rather than to just reconstruct it for reconstruction's sake because it was donated to the city and have it sit there and be idle all the time. I don't know how you would justify spending $100,000 or whatever or more that it's going to cost if it's not ever going to be used for anything. I don't see a problem in putting some minimal electricity at least in there and using it for some early childhood activities or whatever.
Joe, do you have an estimate? I mean, one of these to build a cabin back?
Well, the last estimate we got from Tim Kilby was $130,000.
What, was that a construction or was that a tear down and construction?
My recollection is it was the disassembly and then the tree assembly. So it may be less expensive. That's our hope.
I think the problem was, which is why we had to do the phase 1, with the disassembly being the theft and nothing being tagged, so the bid then changed because none of the logs,
Yeah.
you know, we didn't know where anything went. Exactly. So, and now we do have elements missing that were there before, you know, I think portions of the floor, we're missing some of the shorter logs, things that were intact before it was stolen, so that may impact the cost.
Mhm.
We're still hoping, I'm sorry, I'm being the,
No,
I'm
you're being realistic.
being the devil's advocate a little bit, but I think that, so while we hope the cost is less, I think there's some factors out there that we still.
Roofing is going to be not cheap. I mean, that's gonna all be new. There's no, you know, the shingle roofing and,
They use shingles or tin.
no, well, what they're calling for, and I think back then, it was the way it was on our house, they were either split or sawn cedar shingles.
And we also lost the foundation boulders, so we'll be doing something new for the foundation as well.
We lost all the windows, but we did get some donated from a different structure, so we'll have to put
The
around it.
6 acres that we have, the western edge of it and the eastern edge of the proposed development, latitude,
North
38.
there's a land in between those two things. Would the city, if, for example, they wanted to donate it to the city or sell it to the city for a reasonable price, would the city be amenable to taking that on to make the 6 acres bigger than?
It's not been discussed, at least at any meeting that I've attended. And we just have in the 2020 budget $100,000 for potential acquisitions, some of which I think is going to purchase one of the floodplain properties down in Glencoe. The State Emergency Management Agency is funding the majority, but there is a percentage that the city has to pay. See?
You know, I do agree with Dan that for council to kind of swallow the bullet on the cost, that it needs to be rolled into a bigger package. And one way to advocate for construction would be to already have the plan in place with the ideas we floated about what reenactment would look like. So I would recommend that the committee, upon the date of the package roll-in, have a document attachment that says, you know, once a year we plan on doing an annual short historic play. Twice a year, you know, we're going to do a reenactment for kids and family. Quarterly, we're going to invite the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. You know, some sort of concrete plan, exactly like what Mrs. Gregnani said, to show that it's not just there to look at, but is in use. And I think it's important that it happens at the same time that this becomes a budget line item. Because money's tight, there's a lot of different hands in the pie, and there's a lot of competing interests, and this is not a small amount. It's not gonna break the bank, but you know, it's all about how you advocate for it at this point. And I think if it's possible to start collecting, if we can afford offsite storage, other things to go in it, I think it shows the commitment of the committee to make this happen. And people would see it as more than just a structure. Someone that doesn't or hasn't been in log cabins before thinks it looks like just a shed or something, really. But if you have the rocker that goes in the house and you have the cast iron pot, suddenly it becomes something a little bit more tangible. So I think when it comes to council, if you had even photo attachments of the items that you had prepared for it, then it's harder to say no, because you've already gotten community investment by that point. You've donated, you brought your old mason jars, you know, from 1852 or whatever. So now you have a stake in it. You want to see that built. And if you wait to start that, then I think that advocacy goes away. So that would be my advice. And I mean, in terms of, the Village Green as well, I also agree with Councilmember Gragnani. I don't want to see, a rec center. But when I think of Village Greens, I think of two things. I think of the Mizzou Quadrangle, Francis Quad, and then there's an additional quad as well, Mel Carnahan, which is open space with amenities, sidewalk kind of surrounding that area. So I would kind of see our facility off to the side. Now there's certain things that you can do. You can slope the ground maybe so it's got more of an amphitheater feel. You can put an outdoor pavilion so that every time we hold concerts, we're not putting up a temporary stage. We're actually decreasing our costs long-term for these summer events. And that would make a great place for historic plays or Shakespeare in the Park, which you can tie back into the log cabin. I have an old play that I researched I could dig up somewhere. So there's groups that do stuff that you can theme around the log cabin. I mean, that's my 2 cents.
If we can keep the Village Green to the original concept of the Village Green, we reduce the cost of preparing
Yeah.
making the Village Green, rather than putting in a whole bunch of, playground equipment and big stages and, all of that.
Save the cost of setting that stage up at the end of the street all the time and blocking the street.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with single,
No.
community stage for
Right.
outdoor bands and things
Right,
like that.
exactly.
I think what we're saying, we
More like
agree, yeah.
More like a gazebo or whatever,
Yeah.
they're pavilion or whatever they're called.
I think too, if we happen to demonstrate to council a significant fundraising effort, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 25%, maybe we show some community backing of the project. Maybe we can't get it all, but maybe we can get enough of the money that we can say, look, people are serious about it. And whether that be commercial or whether that be homeowners or all the above.
So you can put this on the agenda for next time? The next item is the Cone Park sign in Ward 1.
Mr. Rosner and I happened to meet last night at the meeting I referenced earlier. As best as I can tell, he's still interested in completing it, but it's not probably going to be within the next few months.
We've waited this long.
Or is it a gotta have?
But he's still interested.
He's still interested.
This is the one with the rail.
Yes. He has some of the rail that was removed from the Katy Trail, from the Katy Railroad or the Katy Trail. And he's a blacksmith, so the design was unique and we thought it'd be appropriate for the Cone Park site.
So no contracts been signed?
No, contract was prepared and provided. As you know, his mother passed away unexpectedly, and she used to do a lot of his business affairs, so it's just been a struggle. It's been hard for him, and we've been patient. And as you say, the fact that he was at a meeting last night was very positive.
So any change in the cost or anything?
None that I know of.
So, well, let's just give it a few more months.
If you don't mind, I can. I mean, it's not obviously a good time to be probably doing it now,
Right.
because of the time of year, but it'd be great to have that if we could get it started in spring. And that's how I'll maybe present it to him.
Okay. Is the money still, did it roll into this year's budget?
The department has funding for it. In our capital improvements budget, which is each fiscal year, there's a line item just for capital improvements and equipment purchases. as with any city that has park property, swings wear out, ropes get broken, things need to be replaced. So the city council's always been very generous, and I have money set aside in there for that.
All right, so we'll see this back in a couple months.
Like I say, him and I had a good conversation last night at the end of the meeting, so I think he's getting back in the swing of it. It was positive.
Okay, the fourth item on here is updated the 2020 work program.
Thank you. You'll note I also gave you a pretty version of the work program. Back it up on your wall in your office, and keep track as we go through. Obviously, this is our first month, and so most are not started, but there are 4 of the 12, so actually a third of the way, third of our projects are underway. So we'll highlight some of those. We intend this year to do some work, repairs on Old Town School. We'll update our historical survey and do another open house. In fact, Michael Allen, who we've contracted with for that in the past, will be our trainer for the commission in April. So we can kind of coincide all of that work after we met with him and learned exactly his process and learned a little more about it. So the Orville Bridge reconstruction is what's holding up the community marker, the last community marker, and I believe it is slated for this year. That will hopefully not be on our 2021 work program, and we can still blame Public Works for why that one's held us up. We are underway.
Actually, city council approved the contract with Pace Construction for the bridge work, and so that's complete, which means it'll start as soon as weather permits. And then we'll be able to install it on summer.
We'll have and we'll do a dedication like we've done in the past when that one's ready. Our first project that's underway is the drafting of the final chapters of the Wildwood history book. So Ms. Von Gruben has her contract fully executed and is underway. We hope to have most of, if not all of her first draft for our March meeting. We've done, we'll get into it a little bit more when we talk about the publication of the book, just as far as timing and such to finish that project. And the department has begun drafting the incorporation work as well with some help from incorporators who have provided some information and cataloging of a bunch of the documents. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. We haven't started our points of interest map yet, although the points of interest for this year have been identified. It is our final year of scenic byways. So it includes, I'm not going to remember all of them, but it's, I think 5 roadways this year, including Church Road, so we'll hit Westland Acres. We'll hit Orville, it's in the northeast corner, so we'll have a Ward 2 highlight in our points of interest map, Councilmember Edens. We're still working on Route 66 items, so that would be number 6, and then 7 is our new pocket park, so neither of those have begun. We're still working on Bellevue Farms project. So, you know, last year we had talked about, Gork had made that proposal for mountain biking improvements there. That's been removed from that. We had an open house right before this meeting. They're proposing those now moving forward in Bluffview Park. Bellevue Farms, the neighbors in the area have formed a not-for-profit called Friends of Bellevue, and the city has met with them. They are going to begin work days out at Bellevue Farms to remove all the invasives, and they're going to do a lot of property cleanup out there. So they're doing some of the prep work. The city is assisting them and getting things kind of set up out there. And then we'll begin the construction of the improvements hopefully later this year. But that park should open to the public, if not 2020, then 2021 is kind of where we're on target for that work. But
Is there, the fact that, okay, they're removing invasive species and that, is there somebody that knows what they're doing?
yes, yes.
That's
The entire
really
property, yes.
yeah, supervising this?
Yes, They have, yes, the entire property has been assessed and mapped, and they are working with Missourians for Monarchs out there who are monitoring the, and giving direction on the invasives removal.
Okay.
So, yes.
Just to, Bob Lee was the gentleman from Missourians for Monarchs that kind of organized the other 8 independent agencies and a couple of entities from state government to do the environmental assessment,
Okay.
including fauna and flora. Bob Lee will be kind of the oversight authority. I also, just about an hour ago, talked to the wilderness expert from St. Louis County Department of Parks and Recreation. She's over at West Tyson, and I explained to her what they were doing, and she's going to give them a call and see if she can assist them as well.
Yeah, okay.
So, you know, in the discussions I've had individually with the 3 directors of the not-for-profit, you know, I've expressed that, you know, we want to make sure that we're not taking on something that's positive along with the negative, and they've assured me that they understand that as well, and that Mr. Lee and some of the others that participated will be helping them.
Because when we moved in out here, I thought the honeysuckle was kind of pretty. And had to learn that, so the same thing, you know, maybe I cut down some ugly things that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it also, we're not moving into building restoration yet,
Right.
so, you know, we'll bring things back before it gets to that point.
How are they getting the word out about workdays and getting help? Or are these groups that they've been working with, bringing in people that know what they're doing?
It's been basically the 3 of them, the directors, that have kind of spearheaded this. And you know, there's always the law of unanticipated consequences. So when Gork proposed the trails and the mountain biking center in Bellevue Farms, it galvanized a community that, for the most part, it appears from their descriptions, were cordial to each other, but didn't necessarily socialize a lot. That's changed. Now they have community events down there, barbecues, and they have a band every year, that one of them, and so they believe they're going to have about 18 or 20 of Sherman residents out there helping them at these work days. Now that'll fluctuate probably depending on schedules and time of year and weather, but they're really not.
They're not wanting outside help?
No. Now, the department proposed as a replacement to the barbecue bash as having a resident workday out there. And then after the workday, have a barbecue and a band and do that on maybe an infrequent or frequent basis.
I learned from the lawn and garden event, I'll pass these out, that the Master Naturalist organization, like the Master Gardeners, has community service hours, and they will actually help cut down invasive species. So if you pass that along, that would be good. And since, Steve, you were asking about how to know what to come down, you can actually go to an educational session.
Yeah.
Correct. But we're, sorry to derail.
Please.
Yeah, we'll just pass them around. But it's a great segue. There is a summit that we're hosting. Our local garden centers are featured, but we're also covering topics that a lot of people are concerned about. So you can see that invasive honeysuckle is a listed topic on the back of the card, and when you go to the website, there's a full list of partner organizations as well. So lectures will be inside between the community room and council chambers, and all the outdoor booths of each business, and also the additional organizations will be right out front. So we'd love to have you.
Are they planning on planting more milkweed for the monarchs?
At this stage, all we've talked about is the invasives, and we have honey locusts. I call them Bradford pears, but I think they're Coleotery pears, and then the bush honeysuckle. And unfortunately, there's a lot of it. And they've divided the program or the site into 3 work areas, working from west to east. And so my guess is it's going to take a little bit before we get to the stage where we're actually looking at restoration and development of maybe a prairie or native planting. And that's why the young lady from St. Louis County that was at our Fluffview Park meeting, that's her area of expertise. She was telling me they just did a burn in West Tyson Park in a prairie area that they're trying to restore. So a good resource, I think.
Has the county approved the extension of the lease for the property at this point, or?
We haven't formally transferred the paperwork between the two parties, but we've had that discussion. So we need to do that sooner than later.
So more to follow. We'll keep you all informed as we work through the items out of Bellevue Farms. Two of the things that have not started yet, number 9 and 12, are the memorial policy for recognizing some champions of history in our city, and then the creation of the master plan, which we discussed will also include signage identifying donations. So as we've discussed, we have started on the Essenlaw cabin and are making progress on that. We will talk in a little bit about the bicentennial celebration. And then the last page, I kind of split some things and left those as ongoing items. Those are ones that we will never be able to check off our to-do list, and we'll keep going through those. So the first is historic preservation efforts and public relations. So we have an article in the Gazette that's coming out. We continue to include items in our e-newsletter. I've made some updates to the website. We've done we've done 3 posts on social media since our last meeting, and you can see that they reached over 11,000 people combined on all 3 of the city's platforms. The historic preservation was included. We did a 20 to 2020 countdown that was very successful and had very high reach, and we highlighted the 11 historic communities, the 13 properties on the local registry, and we had 20 churches in the city, and so the photos were Bethel, Old Rock Bethel, and then the current one. So we got some legs under it with those posts. We'll have 4 training sessions this year, 3 are scheduled, and they're kind of all front-loaded, so we'll schedule one later in the fall. And then just an update on our projects. So Route 66, which is Manchester Road, is the Phase 3 project, is well underway. Utility relocation, which seemed to take forever, is finished. I think a guy spent months down in a manhole splicing fiber, so I'm sure he was happy to see that finished as well. The storm sewers are almost finished, and so that will, with weather permitting, make some good progress and should be finished this fall. State Route 109 is on schedule and is supposed to be completed by May, so by the summer. That project will be done. I'm sure everybody will be happy to see that and a little smoother, although it is nice to cruise those roundabouts. And then Community Park Phase 3 is finished. So if you haven't gotten down there, we've added 2 pavilions, some additional parking. There's a perimeter loop trail now that is almost right at a mile. That is a great trail to take you through the full 66 acres. And the bridge that was installed, which was an engineering feat, and Joe and I got to watch it get placed, and it was pretty cool. It took a couple of shims, and it was on the money. So
Literally, little metal washers, and there was, I think, 2 or 3 of them. And that's all it took for Gershenson to get a level in place.
And we're watching it go, it's not gonna fit. It's not gonna fit. It was like perfect.
Got this big bridge, and it just didn't look like a hole was big enough for the bridge.
Yeah, I unfortunately couldn't get over there. I wanted to, but I was out walking the dog that morning and I heard them over there.
Yeah.
And it, 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was,
I mean, once they got it lifted, it was crazy.
laying the crane so it wouldn't tip, that's the biggest thing.
A little wet.
Yep.
That's our update. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And one addition on item 9, I will have a draft policy for you. The department started work on it the end of December. I was hoping to have it tonight. There's a couple things I wanted to let sit and kind of marinate a little before, but I'll have a draft for you for review in February.
Do I want to sign this? Should put our statement.
Yes.
All signed it. We know we're all committed to that.
Well, I had asked Kathy to make it wallet size for you. So you could,
Would have been perfect. We only have 2 items on our work program. We had by February.
I want one.
Because we want to pick the ones that are.
We'd have it all tattooed on our
Hey,
back.
Kathy, I want one to fit under my pillow.
So you can sleep on it.
Historic preservation. We can do that. We could probably get it printed on a pillow.
Well,
That'd be even better.
But then we'll have to change it because we're gonna get them all done.
Yeah. We probably drool on it too every turn.
Okay, so we got some old business, 3 items. We'll discuss the discussion on the publication of the final Wildwood written history book. You gave an update there.
So after the last meeting, we had started preliminary discussions with a publisher and a printer and trying to, like I said, they were very preliminary and we wanted your all feedback, and it was clear you were not interested in the publication that was a severe edit of the book size. So we continued with other discussions with different publishers. The 2 publishers that I had conversations with are both more self-publishers, so that they are not as interested. They don't care what the size of the book is. It's up to you, whatever you want to publish. We also got some pricing on just printing. So I think at this point we can make a decision on what steps we want to take. Do we just want to print? We discussed last time that we felt that the book probably needed some editing done to it. So the 2 different publishing companies, the first was Friesen, and they're a Canadian firm, Friesen Press. They're very well known and have some great connections and networks. But there is a fee. So to go through Friesen Press is between $2,000 and $10,000. They will do editing. They can do a full redesign if we would so choose. They can, and then they can print hardcover, paperback, ebook. But like I said, there is a cost. So the second to last paragraph was, I didn't have the information, but I do now. So just take a listen instead of read about it, which is super exciting. So Graphic Connections Group is a local firm. They're located in Chesterfield. It's who the Wildwood Historical Society uses for most of the, if not all, of the publications of their books. They are a self-publisher, so the size of the book is entirely up to us. They interestingly do not charge for their publishing work, so we don't have that $2,000 to $10,000 charge that we would have with Friesen. They do editing. They do not do it in-house. They use an online service, so I don't have a cost because it would be based on the word count of the book. But we can, they will assist us with that. It's a pretty quick process on the editing. It's a couple of weeks. We can give them direction. Do we just want grammar and punctuation, or do we want a full edit? From the feedback I've heard, we want a full edit. So the nice part is when they send it to the online editor and get it back, it's not changed, it's all identified. So we would see all of the recommended editing changes and then be able to pick and go through and say, we don't want to make that change, that one changes content, whatever, and pick and choose through the entire edited version. So that will add some time in our timeline, but I thought was a pretty nice feature that we could see everything and make our decisions. And then they will do the printing. If we want paperback, which is called perfect bind, if you see that in paperwork, they do that in-house. They they can do hardcover as well. It's obviously more expensive. They say they contract out the cover. They will print all the interior pages, and then they contract out the cover with a firm in Illinois, right over the river, and do that. So the hardcover printing will take 8 weeks. The paperback, maybe 6. So as Joe and I have kind of looked through and kind of backed out, and then, sorry, let me finish one more thought. The cost of the books, we just pay for the printing. That would be the only fee to this company. We would pay for the editing, we would pay for the printing. There's no other fee. And then we would just decide whatever we wanted to charge for the books to recoup that cost. They do have, and they can do ebooks as well. They do have a bookstore, as she called it. They will take a royalty, but they from any books that they sell. But if we wanted to leave a number of books with them, they handle the shipping and all of that. So it did give some good options, and they were local. So as Joe and I have looked and backed out the schedule, the good news is we have till October, because Celebrate Wildwood isn't in August this year, it's on October 10th. But we need probably 12 weeks of printing. So the goal will be that the book is done by end of June, August, September, yes. So that's why we're hoping that Ms. Van Ruben will have her draft to us in March. We can review hers. The department is working diligently on getting the other portion complete as well, so that we can get a really good solid edit and review as well before we complete. But we believe that we can, with the time frame given, if we select a publisher and an editor, that we can make the deadline of October 10th with the complete book.
What have they've published for the society? What books have they done for them? I mean, how does that work for them? Have they sold books there, and
Yeah.
has it been successful? Then
Yeah, Jill's got a couple books there.
Yeah, they have a book on
There's some-
cemeteries, one-room schoolhouses,
right,
road
okay,
roads,
that's
churches.
that's
yeah.
what they've been doing for them.
And Ms. Fox, who will be doing our training at the February meeting, has published a couple of books of late. So
Yeah.
maybe a good question to her, kind of as part of the overall discussion. How did she feel about this particular publication?
Yeah, all right. So if they've been using it and are happy, that's
Yeah,
been successful, and obviously, I hope they haven't been losing money doing it. That's,
No, in fact, they were recommended to us from the society.
So-
I didn't just see their name and call them off the book. The
Yeah.
society said, here's who we use, and they do a great job. We're very happy with that.
Yeah.
So,
Did you get an estimate for, whatever, 550 pages, or did you get an estimate for what the cost would be for perfect?
No.
No, okay.
no,
So we don't know if it's the $11 a book or $50 a book.
we have no idea. Yeah. Yeah, and those estimates are all in the back. So, and I mean, the other thing is, we can edit, we could use them for the editing, but we're not obligated to use them for the printing. So if we think their bid seems outrageous, we can very easily just bid the print project. And that is included. Messenger Print Group, which is a local company, she had reached out, and I just kind of threw a guess on page numbers out there. So she said she would revise her quotes. But I think we did about a 550 page, I think is what I estimated. I was just too uncertain.
Yeah.
Because we're also discussing that we probably need to change some font sizes on the bibliography and the timeline and some things, so we can probably save some pages there. So our 380 becomes, I don't know, a little less, and then just without any estimation. I never would have guessed that the last chapter was gonna be 200 pages, the chapter we did last year. And it was, so I think that I just didn't want to shoot it.
Well, depending upon funding, we could go to an ebook as well. We could step, to get it edited, we could go to ebook, and then it's archived, and then at that point, we can print as many as often as we wanted to.
Yeah, and the graphic connections group, they also will handle the ISBN number and the library types of things that we need in the final publication. And at a better price than we just buy an ISBN number.
So it'd be good to coincide our getting the delivery from Jill in March with trying to decide on this editing. And not only, just get that going so we can.
So, just so you're aware, if we get something from Ms. Van Gruven in the latter part of March, which I think is what she was,
That's her goal.
her goal. That basically gives us April and May and part of June to get it complete. So those couple of meetings in April and May will probably be more about our history book than anything else.
Sounds good, that's good news though.
Yeah, it's that last outfit you talked about.
Didn't like the first one.
Not a problem.
At all.
It was radical surgery, and I don't know if we'd recognize the patient afterwards.
Yeah, and we don't want to be on the show box, we don't want to botch this up.
But just so we're clear, Kathy and I, and this is what we left after our discussion at our last meeting, we just didn't want to do punctuation and grammar. We were looking for a full edit.
I mean, you got a book that's been put together over several years that should be made into one story. I mean, it's 4 different stories now.
Yes.
It needs to be combined.
But I just wanted to make sure that that's the direction I think Kathy and I would like to go.
Yeah.
But it's your book, not ours, so. Make sure.
So we'll bring this back.
We may not have it in February, but certainly we'll have some updates in March. And things would go well, and hopefully about that same time, a draft of the incorporation chapter.
Is she aware of her timeline? Okay.
And Kathy and Ms. Van Gruven have been talking this week as we completed the contract for all the services.
I've talked to her more than my husband this week, actually.
Okay. It's good that everybody's on the same page. No pun intended. Okay. So another exciting item is item 2, which is the discussion of the Commission's participation in the Missouri 2021 Bicentennial Celebration.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry this has taken us a little bit of, a few more months than we had hoped. Thankfully, we started early, and it's not till 2021. So there's 2, at the last time we brought this before you all, and you were encouraging and supportive of participating in the state bicentennial. So we did some more research and kind of drafted a couple of items. There's 2 potential areas of involvement for the city. One is the community legacies, and then the other is the endorsed projects. So the community legacies are meaningful places or area traditions. So what we did is we drafted a potential letter to send to either owners of meaningful places or organizations that have longstanding traditions within the community. So if you have comments on that letter, we would love to hear them. But that was included in the packet to basically let them know about the bicentennial, let them know about these community legacies. We're going to include the packet from the state's website in there for them so they can research it and read on it. And just encourage them to apply, but then also offer our support if they wanted to apply and needed any assistance. So that would be for the community legacies, which we also included a list that we would like your input on as well, where we listed organizations and what their traditions were that we were aware of, and then we provided a list of meaningful places, and those are the things on the National Registry, and then just some other things that really are kind of made Wildwood. So research that, read that, and if you have comments, we'd love to hear them. We'd love to hear if we're missing something, and
We can do a whole bunch of work and get a whole bunch of people involved. Or we can capitalize on the work that we've already done. And where could we interject our points of interest map and our plaques? And could that be a submittal?
for Lacey.
Thank you.
What about St. Paul Lutheran Church? One more on
Yeah, we have that as the sausage supper. We've been
First
doing
one
that
on the list.
with-
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one. I saw Bethel and I didn't see St. Paul, I'm sorry.
Oh,
And
that's
do-
fine.
And do we have any Century Farms?
Mr. Rosner's. And I think there's one other. We'll have to research that for you. Thank you for
Century
doing that.
Farm? What is this?
Family.
The family-owned, continuously family-owned farm for over 100 years.
We're getting close.
Wabash Frisco Railroad?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay, so if you think of any others, please let us know. We'll get that letter out. We'll wait a couple of weeks before we send that out and give you all some time to kind of noodle on that and give us your input if anything else comes to mind. And this goes for a while, so if we've already sent one batch of letters and something comes up and you think of someplace, we can send it again.
Is that old, very small church that's out 100 on Old Manchester, that's out of Wildwood, is it not?
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. It's an active church,
Yeah,
too.
right.
And then the second area of participation would be the endorsed projects. And we did reach out just to confirm, and the state said that, yes, Celebrate Wildwood and our participation with the commission there could be an endorsed project. So we wanted to just confirm that you all wanted to do that. And if you do, then we will complete the application to have Celebrate Wildwood. We'll start with 2020 and make sure if we need to learn from any mistakes before we dive in for 2021. But we could have that endorsed both years. So if you all are supportive of that, we'll file the application to have.
Do we get recognition from the state? Like, do we get a sign that goes up on our,
I don't know about a sign, but you do get listed on their information, and then you do get branding and media kit.
yeah, but
to-
something out there that says it's
Yeah.
Missouri
If they don't give it to
Bicentennial,
us, we'll make it.
tied in with us.
Yeah.
So do you need a motion for this? on this?
I think that would be helpful.
So the motion to put in the application for 2020, Celebrate Wildwood celebration.
So moved.
Moved. Jim seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I noticed they got Stonewall's Grove on here. Apropos, did anybody ever see the video on Channel 9
Oh, yeah,
about Stonewall's Grove?
yeah.
I wonder if we could get a copy of that to show here. That was, I think it's probably about 15 minutes.
Yeah,
It really tells you what, I mean, that was the oldest
it's about, yeah, the dance halls. and-
dance halls. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it talked about how that went and who came there and the famous people but it was really well done, and I guess, we could use it with their permission.
Yeah, I would think it'd be nice to even like to have, say, at Celebrate Wildwood, just on a
Yeah.
video running there. That it was really well done.
With the commission's permission, we'll give a call down to Channel 9.
I would,
Yeah, I think it was
should be.
part of their Living St. Louis.
Yeah. I mean, that's help them raise money.
When you get these letters drafted, you'll be able to buy and sign them.
Yes, please.
Just let me know when you're ready.
And again, we're not going to do this tomorrow, so as Kathy mentioned, if you have edits to the letter that is going under the chair's signature, or if you have some other ideas about, let's say, a tradition that we didn't know of, and we did discuss it here, but we did it kind of at the end of the meeting, or if you know of another meaningful place. But we will add those items that you suggested during our discussion.
One of the tradition things that I know it's been going on a long time, I don't know how long, and it ties in with Rockwood Reservation and Rockwood Range would be their maple sugar.
It's coming up at the beginning of February. Thank you. So we're not going to put you under pressure, so maybe by Wednesday of next week, end of business day, if you have any suggestions or edits to the letter, if you could let us know. Otherwise, as they say at weddings, forever hold your peace.
Until the next batch go out.
Yeah, this one we get a couple bites at the apple, so to speak. Thank you.
So I guess the question is, you would celebrate Wildwood or the previous incarnations of it? No matter what you called it, it's called something else
Yeah.
before.
Yes. It's had many names, started as Wildwood Days and then morphed into a couple of other things, and then when we started, when it kind of came back in its current iteration, we ended up with Celebrate Wildwood. So we've had that name at least for 4 or 5 years. So, which I think is more recognizable than the earlier ones. Okay, well, time flies when you're having fun. Okay.
Okay. Third item on here is our archiving documents. Looks like you're making progress there too.
Well, a lot of the congratulations or success goes to Ms. Gragnani and Ms. Kozlowski. Ms. Kozlowski, her husband Don, who was passed, was the chair of the incorporation committee that ultimately was successful in obtaining the vote. And he had a lot of information. Mary Ann Simmons, who was on the incorporation committee, provided to the city all of her records. And Judy Sound, who was on the Historic Preservation Commission, who was also passed, had a lot in her basement that we were able to retrieve. And then the Gergananis had some, and so collectively we gave what we had here at City, and they've done an excellent job of sorting through it all. Maybe you want to describe what you did.
Well, basically, we sat and went through boxes and trash bags and tried to combine duplicates of, because obviously there were many, many duplicates of the same thing, and tried to get it down so that we didn't have quite so many duplicates. And tried to organize it into actual information that was used during the incorporation and background information that was collected to come up with how things, what they thought was the best way to do things. So we had a bunch of printed information that was newspaper articles and pictures and what have you. So it took Pat actually did most of the work. I went over there and helped her many times, but she did a lot when I wasn't there. So most of the congratulations should go to her for sorting through it all and getting it all boxed up and ready for the city to use.
Well, I extend my thanks to you and Ms. Kozlowski. So as you know, in past years, we've always talked about how would we go about the archiving process. And we actually even invited a couple of firms to come to the commission meeting and kind of sell their services and give us an idea of cost. City Council has been gracious and allowed the Department of Planning to hire its own administrative assistant, which we now have on staff. That person, along with our excellent copier, can do the work here. And so Ms. Kozlowski has provided us a first couple of bins of stuff to be scanned, and we've started that process. So it's underway.
I'm sure there'll be, you know, when you get to the end, there may be a lot of stuff that she has there that probably doesn't necessarily need to be scanned because it is background city plans from far and wide, and just it was information that they looked through to say, you know, we like this, we don't like that. I doubt that all of it needs to be scanned, but there is a lot of material there.
Well, there's two things I would say. First of all, the copier we have can scan things incredibly fast, even the largest of documents. And in terms of storage space, it doesn't take up much space anymore. So I would probably say, if it's in the bin, we're gonna probably scan it. And then we can, and Chris, who's the administrative assistant that's going to be doing the work, will index it so that we know where it is and what it is. And then you all can make some decisions too if you want. We can provide you that spreadsheet or whatever format that might be. But at this stage, I think we'll cast the wide net if there's no objection.
And I think, I mean, Kat and I had many discussions while we were doing this in terms of, you know, do we keep this, do we not keep this? And I think what we ultimately ended up saying was, let's keep as much as we can, because, you know, someone comes along 5 years from now who wants to do a doctoral thesis on, you know, the incorporation of the city of Wildwood. I mean, they may want all of that information, so that's why we ended up keeping as much as we did, because there's probably, I would say, 15 file boxes, you know, fairly good sized file boxes of, and they're stuffed full.
Once it's scanned, what will you do with the documents?
Well, that's a good question.
That has not been completely answered to my knowledge at this point.
And almost all of the documents aren't city property. So if I were to offer a suggestion, those that we provided that were given to the city, like from Mary Ann Simmons, maybe we want those back, but they've kind of been put into, they've been kind of separated out.
Yeah, they've all been
Intermingled.
meshed together, yeah, they're intermingled at this point.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I probably would turn them to Ms. Kozlowski and say at some point she doesn't want them in her property at her home, we can certainly find the location. We use Dodge Moving and Storage for all of our record management, and they do a very good job, and we can call in the morning and they'll have the document out by the afternoon, so. And it's controlled, temperature controlled, protected storage. A lot of our court records, things like that go there.
They'll all be in the electronic file.
Pardon?
They'll all be in the electronic
Yes.
file. So I think the real question is, what are we going to use electronic file for?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, some of it will be used in our book.
Yeah.
Or, figures and stuff.
Does the county library and the various local libraries, like Kirkwood, Webster, I mean, do they keep records like this? I mean, would this be something that, I know it's not, you're looking up your ancestors, but this kind of research information, I think, should be available to the public someplace, and I don't know if they accept this and keep it on file someplace.
I think Washington University's
Yeah.
School of Government does.
But
UMSL does as well, I believe.
Also,
UMSL.
But to make this available at this place, so it is available to researchers.
Well, and that was the reason for for getting it into, at least as far as I knew, for getting it into a digital format
Right.
so that
Oh,
it's
yeah.
out there on the internet if someone, you know, wants,
Yeah.
wants to look at it, you know, to
But,
research
yeah.
the incorporation.
Gotta be someplace where you can go find it, yeah.
Well, if at all possible, we'll post it on our website. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's possible at this stage or not, but it's not gonna happen overnight, so.
Yeah, I don't know where researchers go to look, I don't do that, I don't know where they go to look for.
Was Chesterfield incorporated after Wildwood?
No.
1988.
I wonder if, I'm trying to think in the metro Missouri area, if any other cities were incorporated after Wildwood.
Three-car,
Same time, 1995.
okay.
Who was that?
So Maryland Heights was the first to incorporate, then Chesterfield, and then Wildwood and Green Park did it at the same year, 1995.
And John, what was that city that contacted you that was looking to?
South Point.
Those are the folks from Gray Summit. They wanted to.
Yeah, but there was someone else out south.
It was down in the Telegraph Road
Right.
area, South Point.
Oh, yeah, that was, yes, yeah, but that never went anywhere.
Never, I knew it never went.
Yeah,
but,
Don and I
yeah.
went down there a number of years ago.
We'll also contact the Missouri Historical Society, see what they say.
A lot of organizations have their storage at Missouri Historical Society.
So we'll
But
see.
either that or the one that just opened up the brand new building in Columbia.
That's the State Historical Society,
Okay,
and
okay.
they have a lot of local stuff. In fact, if you write a memoir from your work experience, they'll even accept that. So there's a lot of,
For the time being, Pat is saying she wants to keep it at her house, but you know, how long that will continue, I have no idea. But she has room and her basement is perfectly dry and.
Yeah, I mean, the physical keeping up, I was wondering, but I think it's just, if they're willing to let this out in the public and let, you know, anybody look at it online, I don't, you know, you can keep all the file cabinets you want at home,
Well, once we scan it, it's public property,
yeah.
period. Anybody who wants it can have it. So, I will not be back in February saying we're done, but we started.
Been talking about it for a while.
Great progress.
And, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, maybe we'll add it to the work program so we can kind of update you each month.
Check it off, too.
Yep.
I love checking off a to-do list, it's ridiculous.
So, do we
So it's
have-
a new addition to the work program.
Do we have a motion and second and vote on adding it to the work program since all of the items that are on the work program?
being on the work
That's a
program?
good question.
Okay, so I'll set the motion to put this item of the scanning of the documents on.
Put the motion to put that
Plan.
scanning on the work program.
Make that motion? Second.
Second, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry we missed that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we got another item from Commissioner Scott. Is that the other item that we're gonna talk about?
Yes, sir?
Is the investigation of that,
Yeah. Yeah, I called them and went by there. They've got
what's the name of the company again?
Restore Refab. They're down in Benton Park. They've got an old rundown building, huge building filled with stuff. They take anything they can get out of old buildings, and they use, I guess, retraining of people who need help to do this work. And then they sell it. The building is filled with, has light fixtures, anything they can pull out, usually in whole, faucets, sinks, things like that. They've got a huge yard, full inside walk. They're full of bricks, pallets of bricks, so they salvage everything. A lot of what they do, and they're huge, great big timbers, they will cut these up and like tabletops. They have people that are building tables and furniture, which I like to see the timbers and things used in a building and rebuilt, but better than throwing them, than burning them is to remill them, make a table out of it, make flooring out of it, reuse this wood. I mean, it is old, good, virgin lumber with good tight grain. There's some nice looking wood tables they've got down there. And they were, as you can see, the job they did out here, they wanted all that stuff. There's another company, they've been around for a long time, Architectural Artifacts of St. Louis. They used to be called After the Paint. They're located on Watershed, Lafayette, just west of Jefferson. They've been there for quite a few years. Before that, they were called After the Paint. They've been in Webster Groves and around different places. They've been doing this sort of thing for years. In fact, he was this Bruce Gary who owns it. He was the one who put together the hardware display that's down in the City Museum. And I think a lot of the other, some of the stonework that's around the parking lot. These are all things that he has salvaged from buildings, and I think has worked with Castley a lot on that. So he's been around for quite a while. In fact, I got from him our vanity in our bathroom is from an old butler's pantry that was came from some apartment buildings down on Lindell. So I think he's more commercial though. He'll have a huge staircase, cast iron staircase in the middle of his shop. But I do think if people are tearing things down, at least if we could direct them in this direction and encourage them to salvage as much as possible, I think it's something good to see. They've got so much stuff sitting in their yard, I don't know if they'll ever sell it all. But at least it's someplace, and it's being stored, and people are trying to sell it. So I just really think it's something we should promote. The city can only take so much. You can only handle so much corrugated metal roofing. And
You talked to Glenn Gailey, we're there.
so, and I know one of the things we talked about at one of these state meetings that I think they were doing in Columbia, where the city actually does salvage these things and then has a yearly garage sale, and they sell them. I mean, I think that's probably a little too much for us to want to do here. So if we can find somebody else who's willing to take this stuff and sell it. But I mean, Columbia, I don't know if they made money on this stuff or not, but they would sell it. So
You can fund the log cabin.
Yeah.
Well, you see some of the stuff they sell in the Wildwood swap and sell. This is worth a lot more than some of that stuff.
But I think, granted, maybe we should get first dibs on it, but I think these are two locations that I think, may be interested in taking this.
Well, the commission concurs. When we get calls about demolition, and if we know of anything, we'll recommend.
Or just if we see something, it's maybe get have the addresses and the names for these people and say, hey, here, you've got some nice flooring here. Call these people and see if you can work at having them take it out for you.
Do either one of these companies have brochures that we could maybe have a supply of to hand out to
Could
people?
check with them, yeah.
Check with them.
Yeah.
Should at least have business cards, if nothing
Right.
else.
Well, there were so many of the refab business
Right.
cards all over that house.
Laying all over the house, yeah.
Bolton Road.
So, you know, I think refab is looking for these things. I have not talked to anybody at Architectural Artifacts. You know, I don't know how anxious they are to get things now. I know it used to be, they were, wherever, if you were tearing something down, they were in that building taking stuff out. But he's gotten older, just like I have.
So when you visited the location, are they open for the general public, or do you need an appointment?
Refab is open during the day except Monday. Architectural Artifacts should be called. They're more open by appointment. I think they're open on Saturday mornings. They've got some strange hours. You go to their website and people are complaining of they're not open when you go by there. So he's a little more independent, but I'm sure call. But I did see an article or thing on their website saying we will be open Saturday morning. So it might be a nice.
Doesn't sound like
When-
a high-pressure salesman.
No, it's fun. It is just fun to walk around. They don't, no high pressure. You just walk around and poke and. Oh, I got a neat hose reel down there, the old cast iron hose reel that I found in the back. How much? Oh, $5, I think. Took it home.
Outrageous.
So, but they're both fun places to walk around if you like to poke it around in old junk. So one's on what's,
Lafayette.
well, Lafayette, but refab is on Gravel in Benton Park area. Yeah. You have to walk around all the brick pallets and stone that's stacked on the sidewalk out in front of the place. They must know their
Alderman.
Alderman. So that's, I was
In that
impressed.
case,
by
the alderman can help you.
Yeah.
It's a different world.
St. Louis is a different city.
Yeah.
Thanks for going down there.
Yeah, no, he was enjoyable. And
So the other thing is everybody got a little gift here with name tags, and there is etiquette, and
Everybody except Mr. Rubus. This was not, and I'm gonna get that straightened out tomorrow. You didn't get fired. Nice try. We'll get you a name tag.
at least you didn't put it on the wrong side, right, when you took it out of the bag. So, right side as high as you can get it, so everybody sees it. It says wear it all the time.
Wear it all the time.
I'm gonna wear this home and see if I get any bites on it. So,
Put it on your PJs.
Anyway, so thanks a lot for that. And you got some money for without my name on that thing. They did a good job. And our next meeting is February 27th.
I have a couple others.
More?
Yeah, just real quick. I have two training opportunities that I will send information about tomorrow. One is the annual statewide CLG forum. It is in Jefferson City on Friday, April 24th. It is an all-day training, so I'll send that out. And they're actually looking for responses, so if anyone has a training topic that they would like to see, they would like to know that. And then they also kind of want a ballpark figure. So I'll send it out tomorrow. You can check your calendars, but if you can let me know if you are interested in that, I'll be able to respond to them and just give them a general head count. It's not a formal RSVP. The second training is a 3-day training that Commissioner Stevens had sent over, and I will send information about that tomorrow. It is March, I think, 11th, 12th, 13th, and it's in Chesterfield at the Doubletree. So it is the Missouri Conference on History or something. It was pretty general, but it sounded very interesting. There's a fee for that, but the city, we have money in our budget to pay for your registration fees if you're interested. So you can let me know on that. We'll take care of that as well. And then we got a demo application for demolition of a single-family residence on Strecker Road. It's very similar to the Pullman Road one that we just went to. The neighbor bought the property and wants to remove the second house. They'd like it done next week because they'd like to go to St. Louis County and proceed with the demolition. She did say you're welcome to bring a mask. It apparently is pretty full of mold, and there's no electricity. So I don't know what the weather's gonna be like next week, but if it doesn't have electric, I doubt it has heat, so it might be a little interesting one. So that might be a quick, very short site visit, but we will take lots of pictures. So I will send out dates and times for that one. I'll send that out tomorrow.
It'll have to be early too, right?
Yeah, and there's not gonna be lights. So I was thinking by 4 o'clock, we're getting a little extra daylight, so maybe if we did it at 4, we could get it
Right
in.
now, Thursday's the warmest day of the week, 4 to 6.
I think Thursday was the one day she couldn't do it. So does 4 o'clock work? I mean, generally, I know that a lot of you work and it may not be, but is there a preference on if we try and do site visits, is it preferable to do them late afternoon? Is it preferable to try and get them the first thing in the morning? What do you all have?
Doesn't matter to me, I'm open.
I can't speak, but I mean, I know the commute on 64 a lot of times, especially with bad weather, that's when he's running late to meetings or can't make it. I would suspect morning would work better for one of our liaisons, but.
Can't hold anything.
Yeah, I can't vote, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
This house isn't, it's not on one of the toxic sites.
No, it's near Quaken Farm. It's
Okay.
way north on Stratton
Oh,
Reynolds
okay.
Valley.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Where it's, right across from where Quaken Farm is.
That new bridge that was just.
Okay.
On the Grayson Farm side or on the
Across the
Orville side? Orville.
It's on the west side of Strecker by Quaker Farm.
Okay, got it.
Before the bridge.
Well, I'll send out some options tomorrow, so get excited, look for an email from me, and if you can give me your feedback, that'd be great.
I actually think we have now.
Yeah, we do, we can actually bring those. I don't know how bad it is, but it sounds like a treat, so we'll be prepared. And then my final, which is sort of another, but it's about our next meeting. Our February meeting, you all had requested, and we thought it would be great timing. We are gonna meet at the Old Pond School. So our training next month is on one-room schoolhouses, and she's gonna particularly go into the history of the Old Pond School. So we thought it would be great to meet over there, so just a reminder. There's not much parking. It's probably gonna be cold. So you might wanna be early.
Lucky 13? And we cheat a little, so we usually can get about 16 or 17.
I was surprised to figure out, if I had lived out here, I would have graduated from that school.
Really?
Last class. Last class from that school.
Well, that makes all the difference in the world.
So you got, there's something else in there.
Yeah, that's just, so as you all are aware, obviously we're doing a lot of prep work. This 2020 is the city's 25th anniversary, and so the department is coordinating a community cookbook. And so I just wanted to let everybody know, and if you have some great recipes, we've broken it down per month, just kind of for marketing. So January's National Soup Month, so we're doing soup recipes. But the form is available, you can submit any recipe at any time. So if you want to spam me with a bunch of recipes, and the way the form is set up, you can just take a picture of a recipe card and send it in. You don't have to go through so we're trying to make it as easy on you all as possible. But we're gonna produce a digital, we'll distribute it digitally, but we'll have a community cookbook ready at the end of the year. So, send in great stuff.
And I've got how to boil water already.
It's the pot.
He also has bagels and a toaster down to a science, so. I'm finally finished. Yeah, that's fine.
You done?
Yes, sir. Thank you all for coming in the inclement weather. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Chris?
Second.
Second by Alan. All in favor?
Aye. Sure.
We're adjourned.
Thank you again. We appreciate it very much.
Where?
Welcome to the team.